Bigger than capes.
Give me some insight.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it, and then I watched it.
Right.
Hello, welcome to Bigger Than Capes. I'm Zach, and this week I'm joined by Angela. Angela, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, thank you. Yes.
It's been some minutes since we spoke, and
yeah, it's been a short period since we were last in contact. Yes.
I think it's always nice for the people at home, though, to know that we're both still completely okay.
Yeah, I like, it's reassuring. It's the reassurance that we're always okay.
I like to think that there's going to come a point where one of us host people is going to come on and be like, no, not really.
No, I'm
so there'll be a more interesting answer than, yeah, just okay.
Yeah.
Solid 3-star all round. Anyway, this is some gibberish I'm talking right now. That's
That's how we roll on this podcast.
It is very much so. That's where we excel, I think. Gibberish and comic books. So this is the first of my often threatened episodes where we're going to talk about one of the Kickstarters we've backed.
Yes.
And oh boy, is that a threat I bring up so often and never do.
And finally, it has come to pass.
It has. It's a Kickstarter that I think was delivered quite quickly, if memory serves.
The digital one. I mean, it had to come from America for me, so I backed a physical. Spoiler alert, people! I tend to back physical Kickstarters where I can because I'm a physical media kind of a person. I will say this arrived in the packet was in quite a state, but the actual comic inside was in pristine condition. So that's good packing. Good packing. I'm glad my Kickstarter pledge to packing and postage costs was well used.
It's weird. I thought I'd backed the physical tier of this, and I was wrong. Don't know what happened there. I'm normally a physical tier kind of guy as well.
Yeah.
So, hey, who knows? Unless the postage is going to, bankrupt me, which is often seems to be the case these days. So this first Kickstarter episode, retrospective review. I don't know. We'll I had a name for the written equivalent, which is going to be Kickstarticles, which is terrible. I don't have a name for the podcasting equivalent. Kitcast? No, that's bad.
Kick-order?
Podstarter?
No. No. We'll work on that as these continue.
We'll throw some ideas around.
That'll be a name.
So, Angela, would you like to tell everybody what we're here to talk about?
So this very exciting one. This is Unicorn Vampire Hunter. Written by Caleb Palmquist, illustrated by Daryl, and lettering design and edits by Dave Lentz. There are various covers done by various people, and because I like to give everybody credit, we are just going to quickly run through them. So the main cover was by Daryl, the Vampire Brothers variant was by Jonathan Fisher, the Wizard variant was by David Brame, and the Zombie Hunter variant was by J.L. Draco. I have the main cover. Spoiler alert on that one.
And I have the digital cover, which is also the main cover.
It's just not physically in your hand. So, Unicorn Vampire Hunter, the clue is in the title as to what it's about. But it's not necessarily... I mean, there's not a lot of hunting of vampires also. We open with a girl called Jezebel who lives in a city. The city has, hidden dangers like vampires and the like. So her parents sent her away to live with her uncle Seamus, who is a wizard, and he lives in, as most wizards do, in a small cottage near some woods. And she is never to go into the woods. This is the classic fairy tale setup here. She is not to go into the woods because bad things live in the woods. So obviously she goes into the woods.
Naturally.
finds the bad things, which are vampires, and she's in trouble. But luckily, a unicorn called Edward comes along, slays a vampire in front of her, and comes with her to escape. And then we find out Seamus and Edward's tortured backstory. And then the setup is that the brother of the vampire that Edward impaled on his horn, because unicorn horns are shaped exactly the kind of implement you would need to impale a vampire. So Enrique, who's the brother of the murdered vampire,
Frederica.
Thank you, Frederica. He's not on my little. I have the action cards with their names on, so I can refer back to them. They're very nice. But anyway, so Enrico swears revenge upon the unicorn that has slaughtered his brother. And that's basically, so it's a lot of setup. Book 1 has a lot of setup in it. And there is going to be a book 2, which I am very looking forward to. Hopefully there will be more impaling of vampires on unicorn horns. But yeah, so Seamus is a wizard. He grew up at court. Edward was the prince. Spoiler alert, he wasn't a unicorn at the time.
Also, lots of spoiler alerts, I guess.
Lots of spoiler alerts in this. But yeah, things happen, enchantments happen. Edward ends up as a unicorn. And yeah, so it is a lot of setup, but the setup, therefore, we've established is basically Seamus and Edward, their relationship, presumably, as they reconnect. Killing of vampires, we really, really hope. Jezebel, hopefully, will, because a lot of the promotional sort of art and character design have her holding a sword and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully something's going to happen with her. And Enrique's going to be the bad guy. So there's a bit of setup. So I'm really looking forward to the next one. But it's a nice little pretty book about, vampires and unicorns and magic and also puppies that never age.
The all-important puppies that never age. Yeah,
I'd forgotten to mention them.
They were. That is one of my notes that I have made, is that they need more page time.
Yeah,
I think they only get one panel, and it's not enough panels.
Nope.
This is. I can't remember if I sent this to you on Kickstarter, if you sent it to me.
You sent it to me because you know how I like anything that is. This anthropomorphic animals. Let's be honest.
In a sense, yes, it is.
There's a bit of anthropomorphic animals in there, and also, I enjoy watching things impaled. So yeah, you thought that would be something I'd be interested in. You were damn right.
Well, good to know. I'm glad we know each other this well at this point. It isn't entirely what I expected in this issue. As I think you did, I expected more vampires, but
yeah,
I'm quite into the story we get, and I think the relationship is really well told. The relationship between Edward and Seamus is really well told.
Yeah,
and I think it does something that is really nice. It depicts how people remember events differently.
Yes.
So they kind of see the breakdown of the friendship and the reason that they fell out in very different ways.
Yeah.
Which is really well done, I think. And something that I think people attempt at times and don't necessarily nail, but I think in this case, they do.
They do, yeah. It's, like I say, I was expecting more. Here's a unicorn that kills vampires, teams up with this young lady, and they go forth with a wizard and to kill vampires. And it's not that, but I'm not at all disappointed that it's not that, because what we do get is really nice. It's really good. And that relationship between Edward and Seamus, I was not expecting that. And I'm just going, oh, misunderstandings. The way they were each viewing the same event differently, and basically.
It is a good first issue, though, I think.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of exposition, but it's done really nicely. It's because that fairy tale story element to it really works really well. So it's not like I'm like, oh god, this is just exposition. I'm like, ooh, I'm enjoying this exposition.
Yeah, I think it's a nice setup, and I think that there are definitely some real classic fairy tale vibes. The young girl going to live with the uncle, and the dark woods that you don't go into, and I do really like it though. I think it feels like a solid inspiration for this story, and I think the elements that we do get. When we do get the flashes of like the vampire brothers, who the designs for both Federico and Enrique are really good.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what? I don't think there is a bad character design in this. I think the fact that Seamus is this kind of D&D druid looking wizard with his giant staff and his dreadlocks, and I'm all about it. And I also like that they had to find a way to make Edward as a unicorn look the same as Edward the person, despite looking nothing alike, obviously.
Yeah.
And just had to settle on big old scar.
Yeah, scar on the face.
Which does work, and it's a good cast of characters to open on, and I think it feels like the history that's been written for them is very considered and very, very promising to draw on. I think if this ended up running for quite a while, I can see the directions you could potentially go with this, which could be really cool. And I've said this about a lot of fantasy books recently, that I think a lot of them feel like the ideas you have for a D&D campaign that you don't get to do. And that's how I felt about Necromancer's Map and I think, what was the first volume? A Song. I want to say it was Song for the Deaf, but that's definitely a Queens of the Stone Age album.
Yeah, it wasn't that.
Oh, let me Google that real quick. So I'm not just, if it's called Songs for the Deaf now, I'm going to be really annoyed.
You'd be like, oh, it shares a name with an album.
Songs for the Dead. Oh, so close.
One letter off.
Songs for the Dead, not Songs for the Deaf. Really good comic book. Probably the best Queens of the Stone Age album. I recommend checking out both. But Songs for the Dead, Necromancer's Map, both felt like a D&D story, a D&D campaign turned comic book in the best possible way. And I get very similar vibes from this, that the ideas are, but what if you were turned into an enchanted unicorn and then you decided to hunt vampires and team up with your former best friend, the wizard, and his niece, the yet undefined class, I guess.
Yeah, we don't know what she is yet.
But I feel like we'll find out soon.
We will.
She's got a big sword, so that's always promising. Well, not yet, but she will have a big sword at some point. Yeah, promises have been made.
Yeah, we have seen. There is preview art. No, I really like, there's some really nice horses drawn in here. I'm a sucker for a well-drawn horse. So the unicorn, Edward, is drawn really well. But there's a lot of, because, Fantasyland, horses are everywhere. But what's interesting as well, aside from the well-drawn horses, is there was also this steampunk sort of a hint with the vampires that's hinted at. So you've got, like, the first panel has a picture of the city, and you'll notice you've got, like, classic ye olde town in the front, and then the background there's, like, this huge industrial stuff going on with airships and smoke and all that sort of jazz. And if you look at Enrique's little character card, he's got a big furnace behind him. So
you think we're getting steampunk vampires?
I'm wondering if there's going to be a steampunk. I could be wrong, and the second Kickstarter will prove me tragically and awfully wrong.
That is definitely the vibe, though, we get in that first panel. Maybe we are getting steampunk vampires finally.
I mean, we've all wanted it for so long. Yeah, but no, it's a really lovely little thing. I'm looking forward to seeing more of this, and the characters are now so well defined that it's like, yeah, I want to see Edward and Seamus get over their past. I want to see what Jezebel does. I want more of the puppies that never age, and I want to see what Enrique's got up his villain sleeve.
Good old villain sleeve.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think to go back to that kind of D&D Elder Scrolls kind of vibe, I do like vampire stories, which has been covered in basically any podcast episode for some reason. And whilst we get kind of vampires in fantasy in D&D and the Elder Scrolls, and it in games a lot, both tabletop and video. I feel like we don't get vampire fantasy comics as much as we probably should.
I agree. Yeah, they don't make their way into that media often enough. Like you say, they're in the games and they're in all the sorts of games, but they're not really in the comics. But now they're in a comic.
Hey, and here we are. I'm sure there are probably other examples that I've just not come across, but I like the fantasy backdrop. Maybe more than the fantasy backdrop, I like the kind of fairy tale with vampires backdrop. I think it's a different combination than we get enough, and I'm here for that. And I think the fact that the characters feel varied and interesting and representative is nice.
But when it comes up again, back it on. I'm definitely backing the next bit on Kickstarter because sometimes you back something on Kickstarter and then you read it and you're like, okay, I spent money backing this. But then this is like, yes, I spent money backing this. I will spend more money backing it in the future because it's interesting. It's got a good setup.
It might have steampunk vampires.
It might have, but either way, it's got a unicorn, and I love the fact that when you first meet him, Edward the unicorn, you don't actually know he was previously a person. So you're just like, Edward, that's a really cool name for a unicorn.
I also love that I think it was mentioned on the Kickstarter page, but the fact that it's like, it's a unicorn who wants vampires with his horn. It just makes good sense, and it's
like, why has no one thought of this before? Because the unicorn horn is literally the perfect thing to be stabbing vampires with.
Perfect vampire hunting weapon.
Exactly.
I think, unfortunately, because this is only a first issue, I don't have tons to say. I don't know how about you. But
it's nice. It's pretty. The art may not be to everyone's tastes, because I know the style of art. Some of the backgrounds. I know Will is a sucker for a detailed background, and we don't have a huge amount of those. But we have well-drawn horses, so
it's interesting. Yeah, we have a good combination, because like when we're in the forest, I think the trees and the backgrounds there are really nicely done.
Yeah.
And I think there are some panels that are a bit emptier on backgrounds, and some that are really well done backgrounds. So that is something that Will is obsessed with, but I think the rest of us can get on with.
The rest of us just live with it. Just like, yep.
Or if there is a time where we have a problem with that, Will doesn't care somehow.
Yeah, it's probably how it's going to go. Yeah.
It might not be the artwork you expect for a vampire story, but it's got a nice kind of... I'm almost willing to go with an all ages kind of vibe. This might be if your kids are okay with vampire murder.
Yeah. If you're fine with your children seeing a vampire being impaled by a unicorn, then yeah.
And I suddenly worry now that Caleb Palmquist is going to go like super hardcore in issue 2 and prove me wrong.
I mean, to be fair, there is some blood, but yeah, certainly, and I think an older kid could perfectly handle what's in it. I don't think there's anything in here, bearing in mind that some children's books are pretty dark and dire these days. Certainly the prose ones are. Comic books probably not as much, but still, yeah, I would say that it has wide appeal.
Yeah, definitely so. I think it's a fun start to a fantasy that is probably going to be a little bit ridiculous. And we haven't touched on it yet, but I do really like the design of the witch who dupes Edward, shall we say.
Yes.
I don't get to use dupes enough. But I like the kind of vague, shadowy witch design that is kind of classic, but I never tire of, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, that more or less is all I had to say. Just, I think it's a nice read. I think it's got some really nice elements with the relationship between Edward and Seamus. I think every character is interesting to me, and I look forward to seeing what issue 2 will bring. So yes, more of this, please.
Back it on the Kickstarters, because they do little extras as well. If you want the physical one, I'm sure they'll do physical again, because and you
just makes good sense.
Yeah, and there's pretty little arty bits that you know
that the people at home can't see, but I can, and I like it.
Yeah, there you go. That's my thing.
That's really good. I know there were there were prints and stickers and other stuff with the first Kickstarter.
Yeah, I really like the sticker because it's this unicorn kills vampires with a unicorn with a bloody horn and blood running down his face. It's classy. It's wonderful. That's my kind of thing.
But yeah, definitely would recommend checking this out. I don't think it's available on Comixology or anything like that yet as issue 1, but I think it is going to be that you can get issue 1 through the issue 2 Kickstarter. Yeah,
that's you. If you're a sensible creator,
that's normally how it works.
Yeah, I'm sure Caleb Palmquist is that kind of a person. That draw them in.
Let's just both keep saying it all the time and it'll be fine. But I'm going to be back in the rest of this. I think it sounds like you are too. And
definitely, yeah.
Yes, I'm sure we'll be back again for another Kickstarter episode update. Oh, I'm going to figure out what I'm calling this at some point, but I just don't know yet.
Podkick.
None of them,
none of it's working.
Don't feel right, Angela.
Just not working. But considering how long it took us to come up with the name of this podcast, I wouldn't.
Yeah, true. I wouldn't bank on us figuring this out. No. So that's us. We've been Angela and Zach.
We
will continue to be.
Yep.
We will continue to be bigger than capes. And remember that Kickstarters
are bigger than
bigger.
Try again.
That Kickstarters are bigger than capes.
Nailed it.